Should be. Here we go. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the final event of Cosmere Festival 2020. And we've got a real treat for you. I reached out a while ago to the Writeopolis duo of RJ Barker and Kit Power to see if they wanted to come and do their brand of whimsy, not in their little Discord world, but on video, or as close to video as Kit can manage. And they very graciously said yes and invited some friends along. So we have got their entertainment for the next hour. There are almost no rules apart from they're going to probably talk about the end of the world in some way, and they're not allowed to swear. So if you spot a swear, you can leave it in the comments. If you're watching on YouTube or Twitter, you can leave a comment there and then we'll put them up on the screen. So if you want to put them off, if you want to praise them and their wonderful achievements, that is the mechanism for doing so. And really, it's over to you. We've got an hour and enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to Writeopolis with me and with Kit. And as is tradition, I will say if you can't hear us, please let us know. We're here with the lovely Adrian and Jen, and we're talking allegedly about the end of the world, aren't we, Kit?
Allegedly, yes. Apologise for the fact, as I explained before we came on, I appeared to be regenerating this evening. I wasn't planning on it, but these things happen. Also, weirdly, I appear to also be a Force ghost at the same time, so clearly I'm crossing over all kinds of science fiction franchises tonight. So
I love it.
Enjoy.
But we have two brilliant guests with us who have won more awards between them than I've lost, which is quite impressive.
More than I've been nominated for. So, you know.
I will just let them give you a brief introduction of who they are. I'm sure you probably know who they are and their books and their most recent things. So let's start with Jen, because Jen wore a hat, which because this is the Writeopolis hat edition, which Adrian's got headphones with a bit of a cop out. Adrian.
Well, I think Adrian's hair makes up for it, really, because his hair is so spectacular. So I don't think he needs a hat. Hello, I'm Jenn Williams. I am the author of the Copper Cat trilogy, which you can just see behind me. It's really useful to have these props here. And the author of the Winnowing Flame trilogy, which is this one. Two of them have won the British Fantasy Awards, which you can also see here. It's a terrible show off. And my next books are going to be crime thrillers. So I'm sort of hopping around genres currently. And I'm also responsible partly for the Super Relaxed Fantasy Club. And I'm a writer and I live in London and I've got a cat. I think that's basically everything you need to know.
I think we all have cats. Adrian, do you have a cat?
Yes. Or cat, singular.
And Adrian.
Hello, I'm Adrian Tchaikovsky. I've written by now, a really quite large number of novels and novellas in the science fiction and fantasy line. I'm best known for writing about enormous hairy spiders in outer space with Children of Time, but my most recent book is The Doors of Eden, which is sort of evolutionary parallel world espionage existential threat novel, that well-known genre.
and also it would be remiss of me to let this go past, but this episode is also not only part of the lovely Cosmere people, but sponsored by Kit Power, because his book was released this week. So tell us about Kit Power.
Okay. So my book came out yesterday, my new novella with Horrific Tales Press. It's called A Song for the End, and it's about a rock band that writes a song that ends the world. So it does actually fit with the theme of the evening. And hilarity ensues, if by hilarity you mean sort of people bleeding from various head hemorrhages and thousands of people dying on a frantic race against time. And if you don't mean fun when then what the hell's wrong with you, really? Because so that's my book, and that's out.
It's a very and mine is out at the end of this month. Call of the Bone Ships. That's all the advertising done. And
also sponsored by Hobgoblin.
Oh, I'm sponsored by Vimto. If the lovely Vimto people contact me,
and just in case anybody wants to send me some.
You're sponsored by kangaroos.
Kangaroos, kangaroo wine, yeah.
Kangaroo wine. Let's draw a discreet veil over that concept.
I've lost my popularity. It's kangaroos. I wish I'd brought through our wallaby now, because we've got a flying albino wallaby, but it's in the bedroom, of course.
Where else would you keep a flying albino wallaby?
Do you know about tree kangaroos?
No.
Tree kangaroos are a thing. They're a species of arboreal kangaroo which has decided not to go through the laborious task of evolving to be good at being in trees.
Are you talking about koalas?
No, I'm talking about, they're an actual species of tree-dwelling kangaroo, and they are terrible at it and fall out of the trees all the time.
Oh,
They're just really bad at being in trees, but for some reason that is what they do.
There are lots of people demanding we show them our cats, which easier said than done in our house.
Mine has naffed off.
I was going to say that's someone who clearly hasn't ever met cats, because that's how cats are like. What do you mean, show? Like, what are you talking about?
I genuinely don't.
I might be able to go over to rabbit cam, because I am in the garage and so are the rabbits, because the weather's horrible. So I might do rabbit cam later if you're very, very well behaved, audience.
Why are you in the garage?
Because that's where I go. That's where the magic happens. Because my family don't want to listen to me witter on about. No offense, but you know.
I never knew you were in the garage. That's completely changed.
Yeah, this is all my garage stuff.
Anyway, onto actual things. We always start off with a bit of a chat about what media we've been enjoying this week. I've written fish at the top of my notes, and I don't know why. But
you've been enjoying fish?
Yeah,
Marillion?
Oh no,
I wouldn't have thought so. But
no, not metal enough for me, I'm afraid. I read Piranesi, Susan Clarke. Did I talk about Piranesi? We did.
I just read that too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, and I was curiously underwhelmed, which was.
I've been hearing good things about it. I've not got to it myself.
Yeah. I've been
sorry, go on. I enjoyed it a lot, but it's quite short. And you know, when you've waited so long for a Susanna Clarke book, and the last one was literally this big, so you're like, yeah, give me some amazing Susanna Clarke content, but it's very wee.
Yeah, I've been telling people. Kit said that it was a bit like half a book, but he's looking at me blankly, so he probably didn't tell me that.
No.
I've just been spreading rumors about you.
Or if I did, I was very, very drunk, because I don't recall saying that.
But it's good. I would say read it. It's worth it. And talking about curiously underwhelmed, this is going to get a lot of angry comments, I imagine. I was curiously underwhelmed by the first episode of The Mandalorian.
No spoilers. I haven't got around to the series 2 yet.
Oh no.
Oh.
I mean, I loved the first series, and I will probably therefore have to renew the Disney Plus membership that I kind of squeaked through the 10-day trial period, watched all of The Mandalorian, and then cancelled.
I loved the first series, and I can't say because Adrian's here, but I did love Star Trek Discovery 3rd episode, which I know Jenn did as well.
Oh yeah. All of the new ones have been so good.
Yeah, I actually it's something I keep meaning to pop up on Twitter, but I've enjoyed the new series of that so much, because it's still very much Star Trek, and at the same time it's very, very new, and they're doing something very, very different with it without losing kind of the sort of the heart and soul of the franchise.
It has lots of those moments that kind of just make you go, oh yes, that's what I wanted you to do. It made me happy, and you did the right thing. Trying to talk about without spoilers for those that haven't seen it. Katie's saying classic Yorkshireman there, but I don't know which of us. I love to think she's talking about Jenn.
Oh, I hope so. I'd love to be a classic Yorkshireman personally.
And Kate, what about you? Have you been?
Well, one of the advantages of writing reviews for one of the biggest independent horror review sites in Europe is that you get advanced review copies every now and then, and I was incredibly fortunate to get hold of Laura Mauro's latest, On the Shoulders of Octava, which came through this week, which I got in ARC, and I devoured in a couple of nights. And I think Laura is one of the best writers in speculative fiction right now, full stop. And I think this is probably her best yet. I think it's just absolutely stunning. It's set in the Finnish Civil War, and it follows a small group of women who are fighting for the Red Army in the Finnish Civil War, and who interact with some Finnish folklore in utterly surprising and splendid ways. And it's even for Laura, it's fantastic. I mean, it's just wonderful. So it was one of those things where it's just a real kind of equal parts kind of deep-seated envy at the sheer ability, and obviously joy at just reading something that good. I mean, it's one of those things where it's gritty social realism meets mythic folklore, which should not work. And she absolutely weaves the two elements together so masterfully that each elevates the other, and it becomes this just incredible thing. So
that's how I felt when I was reading Adrian's Children of Ruin, to the point that my wife sent me out the room. If you're going to say that Adrian is a genius one more time, you cannot. And then I didn't, and I got sent out. And I have Doors of Eden ready to go. And so once I stopped reading about fish, that's why I've written down fish. Just remember it. And there's a lot of approval for Adrian sneaking in the Mandalorian on the.
That's what the classic Yorkshireman is in reference to. Using the free time.
Honestly, it wasn't actually. This was very much sort of heart of the first lockdown, and the whole not wanting to continue on with a subscription. I mean, this is almost like, dealing with sort of world-changing event and so forth. It wasn't a money thing so much as that would have been a whole extra complication I would have had in my life. That, well, I've got it now. I'd have to go and watch other things. I really only wanted to watch that one thing and then be done and just keep my life as simple as possible, because that was very much how I was coping with stuff at the time.
I found there's remarkably little on it that I actually want to watch. And Jen, I have this weird feeling that you might have been watching Blake 7.
yeah, it's weird that you say that, RJ. I don't know where you got that from, but yes, we got what's it called, Britbox, which I was very skeptical about. Because haven't we already paid for all the BBC and ITV stuff? But actually, it has got a few corkers on there, including Blake 7, which I hadn't seen at all. My partner had watched it when he was a kid in the 70s and liked it because there was lots of flashy spaceships in it. And it's great. I was just saying to Adrian earlier that I was expecting it to be kind of awkward in that way that older television sometimes can be, and a bit stilted, but actually it's really fast paced and very dry. The humor is very dry.
Have you come across an episode where there's two people in some sort of space freighter and they get some sort of space disease and weird green goo comes out of their nose?
I don't think we've got to that yet, but there was like a big vat with a head in it with a little skinny body hanging off of it, which was hysterical. It was the best effect I've ever seen in TV. But I'm really enjoying it, and not just because the fashion choices are extremely choice. Some really key sort of Marks and Spencer's shirts with like some beanbags sewn around the collar as a kind of futuristic fashion. So I'm really digging all of that stuff.
It's really good because watching it later, you look at what people are wearing and think someone on that production team is going to a lot of fetish clubs.
There's a very good podcast. They only get as far as the end of the second series before the various people on it kind of run out of time to keep it going. But it's called Down and Safe, and they work through the Blake 7 episodes one at a time, and they always spend a lot of time talking about the costuming and the people who are behind the costuming. You get a lot of really interesting information about how everything was put together and where they were kind of what other what other extant production they were kind of borrowing costuming off or whatever. It feels, I mean, obviously it feels quite Doctor Who in places because it looks like it was filmed next door, There's a huge crossover of cast as well. Almost everyone in Blake 7 is also in an episode of Doctor Who at some point.
I really doesn't surprise me.
Sometimes we talk about. Kit came up with the wonderful phrase texts for things that you consumed at a really young age and are stuck in your head and are always part of it. Look at him, you did it, wasn't you?
I'm fairly sure I didn't come up with the phrase text. I may have been the first person you heard use it. I'd love to take credit for it. I doubt like hell I invented it. Sorry, carry on.
Just take it. Just say
Yeah, no, all right, yeah. I invented texts. Yeah. You're welcome. Carry on.
I kind of think for some of us, probably me and Adrian and maybe Kit and Blake 7 is one of those things that's in my head. I'm getting terribly echoey. I'm going to put in some headphones.
I think it's probably more Who for me, to be honest.
The author
actually, the other one is
Laura
Mauro,
by the way. Because I'm asking about the Finnish Civil War author, just for the name, so they can grab.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it was Laura Mauro, who is amazing, and check out if you want to check out some of it. I mean, that's coming out in November from PS Publishing, but if you check out Naming the Bones, was pretty astonishing, and her short story collection, Sing Your Sadness Deep, is solid gold from start to finish. Damn her eyes.
We've had her on. She was really good, and I've read some of her stuff. Really, really good. But yeah, are there what you would call texts for you and Jen and Adrian? Things that are just like Watership Down is in everything I do. I know it is.
Yeah, I think we share that, don't we? Because Watership Down was like a lot of people my age. I watched it when I was like 5 or 6, when obviously you should not have been watching it at all. And it was on. We had it like taped off the telly, I think, because it was on a VHS tape with other cartoons on it, and I watched that over and over again. And yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I'm still writing scenes and thinking, oh, this is a little bit like, Captain Holly and the Owsler or something. So yeah, for me, definitely Watership Down, Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. Weirdly, I was really, really obsessed with when I was about 11 or 12, and Star Trek, probably Next Generation when I was a little bit older. Yeah, those are the things that I think turn up in my writing. And Discworld is the other big one, because that was how I learned about fantasy to begin with. So
I can still remember seeing Encounter at Farpoint with my dad. Made me watch it because I'd been forced to go and see Star Trek the motion picture at the cinema, which made me hate all Star Trek.
Oh no.
Yeah. And
although to be fair, that would probably put anyone off.
I was meant to be going to see Star Wars, so it was a double disappointment.
Oh.
And
that's not a swear word then, can you tell?
Yeah. my big memory was that Deanna Troi needed to blow her nose because she sounded like she was stuffed up all the way through. That is my childhood takeaway of Star Trek. Which is. What about you, Adrian? For your...
I mean, I have them. They're pretty damn obscure. Is the thing? It's there's I think it's Malcolm Hulke novelization of a Doctor Who episode, which was the cave monsters / the Silurians. Mostly because it had a chunk of stuff that was not in any way in the TV episodes about the actual kind of from the point of view of the bad guys, which made them very comprehensible and very sympathetic, and gave individual members of them personalities, which I don't think they particularly had in the actual episodes themselves. And then there's the old Roger Corman Battle Beyond the Stars.
Oh, I love that.
Which is basically Magnificent Seven in space. But again, one of the characters in there, one of the kind of the desperados who gets recruited to defend the village / planet from the bandits / interstellar empire, is Cayman of the Lander Zone, who is basically this kind of weird alien lizard man guy. Basically, what these things were teaching me was you can have the alien as the hero, you can have the alien as the protagonist, even. And honestly, I think that's hooked me at a sufficiently young age that's why I'm now writing stories where the heroes are spiders and octopuses and enormous spacefaring trilobites and what have you, because those books showed me you didn't always. I mean, obviously, in a sense, they're the serious point there is they also show you don't necessarily have to have the kind of the square-chinned white guy as the hero either.
No.
But in this case, you don't even have to have the human as the hero. Your hero can be absolutely anything.
I love the spaceship in Battle Beyond the Stars. It's that kind of weird sphinx with a hammerhead shark's head, and it was just one. It's like the design in Alien in that it actually is not the sort of thing people usually would design as spaceships, which I really liked about it. I'm a bit distracted because people are throwing Watership Down quotes into the comments. It's not fair. Stop doing it.
Triggering your PTSD from Watership Down. Yeah, absolutely brutal.
They've not hit the one that really affects me. Is
oh, don't challenge like that. Come on, you know our crowd.
Oh, no.
They'll keep going now.
No, I'm going to tell them and they can't. It's when Bigwig fights Professor Doctor, not Professor Woundwall. That big.
Oh wow!
Woundwall, and he says, "My chief rabbit has told me to hold this thing," and it just destroys me every single.
Oh, it's so good.
That would be a bit of a mail order professorship for Woundwall. You feel he probably didn't go somewhere and put in the several years worth of work to get the position.
Yeah, got that off the internet.
Dear. So what are we all working on at the moment? It's really weird doing video rather than sound.
Yeah, it is.
You find this, Kit, as well. So it's not quite as relaxed as sound.
Nope.
You're not looking at yourself all the time.
It's weird, isn't it? Having to watch yourself speak is really unnerving.
Yeah. It is, and I'm quite outgoing, and like I'll get up and read at the drop of a hat. People need to stop me.
They do need to stop you. Just in general.
I tried that, and look where we ended up. Here we are, literally.
Yeah.
That's how well that's going.
Yeah. Kit's not been doing a podcast with me for about 4 years.
It's true. It's true, to be fair.
Congratulations, Jen, because we should have said on the British Fantasy Award nomination as well.
Oh well, congratulations, RJ. Nominated alongside me. Very cool.
It's a cracking list in all categories, to be honest.
It is actually, isn't it? It's a good lineup.
It's quite weird because now we know so many people on the list. And it's kind of, I know all these people.
Yeah, it's strange, isn't it? Because you're like, it's great that all my friends are on the list, but also I can't hate them if they win. So, really
no, you can. You definitely can.
Can I? Oh, okay.
Yeah, you're allowed at least a solid half hour of hating the people who beat you out on awards. Give yourself that gift of a half hour hate, and then get on.
At least this year we're not all sitting in the banquet room of FantasyCon, kind of sweating into the remains of a Sunday dinner, which is usually what happens.
I'm really ambivalent about awards. I'm not sure my head likes the idea of giving awards to art and saying that something is better than some. I might change my mind if I win.
I was about to say I was quite ambivalent right up until the point where I won one, and then I was awards are
Brilliant.
Go awards.
Best thing ever. Yeah.
But it is a genuinely strange thing to have.
What honestly, I mean, purely from a personal psychological position, and not in any way anything to do with artistic validity, but it's a very good answer to the voice in your head which says you're crap. If you can say, well, actually, I must have been good enough to get that, or even I must have been good enough to be on the shortlist for that.
Yeah. Because
at that point you think, that's an external thing, which is saying you did the thing.
Yeah.
And having a book in print would be enough, but for some reason it's not. Or at least you kind of, you constantly feel that's the thing that's just receding off into the distance. So I mean, honestly, any kind of external thing which says, look, this is the thing that happened.
Because writers are all extremely needy as well, so we need to be constantly reassured that we're not complete disasters. I mean, at least not in this one section of our lives, anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
At least once every 2 months, I'll get an email from my agent that at some point says, "Have you not yet realised you're quite good at this?"
Oh, bless.
And I know he'd like me to win because apparently it's very good for marketing.
Yeah.
Is it weird that you kind of think when you get that first book deal, as Adrian said, that you'll be like, "Oh, this is it, I can do it." But what actually happens is it just gets harder because you seem to know more about it. Is that a universal experience, do you think?
I mean,
Yes.
you know what? I'm willing to bet it's not universal, but I do wonder if the people who don't get that and just think, well, I'm good and I'm just going to keep being good and I'm just going to get better and better and everything's wonderful. I do wonder whether their actual style doesn't fall off, because I think there's something in that kind of worry that makes you keep pushing yourself.
Yeah, I think that's it's a big driving force, isn't it? Because the better you get or the more books you write, the more easier it is to see all the ways that you're not great and all the stuff that doesn't quite work. And your editor's eye gets better. So when you're reading through your stuff, it's easier to see all the crap bits. Yeah, so
do you ever have a feeling that there's somewhere to grow to and you don't know where it is? That's kind of this. I always feel like there's kind of a destination that once I knew where it was, and the more writing I do, the further away it gets wherever it is.
I mean, like the basic idea behind how I feel about it is I just want to have loads of money. So I just want to get to the bit where I'm really rich.
Jen.
Sorry. But yeah, I do with each new book, I do want to do something different. I want to challenge myself because I don't want to write the same book over and over again. And also I want to be rich. So
being rich though is for me, it would be lovely just because I've been at the point where I didn't have any money at all. And every week was a bit terrifying. And then you get to a point when the first book came out where actually I'm not worried about where we're not rich, but I'm not worried about where it's coming from at the end of the month. And that is just such a massive weight off you.
Yeah, that is brilliant. Yeah.
Anyway,
That would be nice.
Suffering artist is a good thing. It's not. It's awful.
No.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. I'm just looking through.
I mean, on that thing about talking about the fact that you're always pushing yourself, always trying to improve. I wanted an open question to any of the three of you. Do you have is there a specific thing that you really feel hungry for chasing that you feel you haven't quite landed yet? I'll give you an example from me just to sort of set the scene. Ever since I've read Boswell's Life of Johnson, I've wanted to write a first-person narrative where it became apparent to the reader that the person telling you the story was completely wrong about something that they were convinced they were right about. Because Boswell's Life of Johnson does this thing where at a certain point you know Johnson better than you know Boswell. I mean, sorry, you know Johnson better than Boswell knows Johnson is what I meant to say. So there's a point in the narrative in about 500 pages in where Johnson takes the piss out of Boswell, and Boswell in the book is telling you he's really upset. Why did Johnson say this hurtful thing? Why would he say such a? He can't possibly really believe it. And you, the reader, at that point know Johnson well enough to know he's taking the piss out of you, Boswell. He's making a joke at your expense, and you're too stupid to realise that that's what's happening. And ever since I read that, I've been obsessed with that. It's like, I would love to be able to pull that off. And I've gotten some good stories out of trying, by the way, but I've never quite managed to land it. Is there anything like that for any of you that you felt like?
I mean, that on a genuinely good, I mean, I've done some first person stuff. I mean, Cage of Souls is first person, but I've not quite got to that point where I've really bottomed out that form of writing. I mean, one of my favorite authors, Gene Wolfe, is an absolute past master at that. And I kind of, it's one of those areas where I kind of feel if I want to do it, I would really have to nail it. And the amount of effectively behind the scenes logistical work you have to do, because effectively you kind of have to write a book and then write a book about the book you've just written. That doesn't include most of the book you originally wrote. And it would be what genuinely would be a joy to do, but it would be a really difficult structural and mechanical thing. The normal way I would create. So And there are a few other things like that I would quite like to try my hand at without at the moment being confident that I could pull it off.
Right.
I think sorry, IJ.
You go. You're the guest.
Because I really love a lot of people who write in first person. So people like Robin Hobbs, Fitz books are in the first person, or Bernard Cornwell's Uhtred books I really love. But I think it's really hard to do that well, as Adrian was saying. You know, it's because it can so easily be a cop-out first person, because you're just writing thoughts, and so you can just sort of blur it out and that's it, done. But to do it really well, to the point where the voice feels really genuine and unique, is really difficult, I think. And I've always skirted around the idea of first person. But funny enough, the book that I've just sent to my agent, which is the second thriller that I was writing, is sort of half first person. So that was like a huge challenge for me, because I had to put aside all of the doubts about first person and the idea that it's either too easy or too hard, and actually kind of really throw myself into it and be confident enough to build a voice for this particular character. And I really enjoyed it, actually. It was huge fun, really difficult, but I have found writing thrillers is difficult anyway. So it's all part of the course now. But it was really hard but enjoyable, and I feel like I learned loads from it. But I feel like there's another first person novel in me yet, where perhaps the whole thing is first person, you know, rather than 50-50.
I love first person, and it's it's what I'm drawn to naturally. If I get tired, I find that I'm writing in first person.
Yeah.
Anyway, and the whole of Blood of Assassins, the second Assassin book, it is built around the fact that the reader knows Girton a lot better than Girton knows Girton. So it's meant to be frustrating because you want him to just stop being sick.
Yeah.
And I like that, but but I still feel that there is a bigger version of doing it. I think that's what I always feel with writing. There's some bigger and better version of me, and I've not quite worked out what that central thing is that I can increase or make better, if that makes sense. I'm just going to point out that Mr. Jenn has turned up, and he wants to know if he thinks I might have a pork pie underneath my hat.
I'm sorry, that is a typical comment from my partner.
Yeah, well, I'm gonna leave him hanging.
Absolutely.
You'll just have to wonder about it. I'm just looking through the comments. Katie said she spotted the Robin Hobbs behind you, Jen.
Oh yeah.
Behind me as well, I think.
Yeah.
That's H. Basically, Harding to Holt on that shelf.
Nice.
You can't see my bookshelves. You can see my music. But Ruth has got a question for Jen.
Yes.
What were the challenges of switching from writing fantasy to thriller?
Well, first of all, in fantasy, you can solve lots of things with magic, which is really handy, it turns out. Also, it's really annoying that people have mobile phones now, because that makes writing any thriller really difficult, because people can be just like, oh, I'm being chased through the woods by a murderer, I'll phone the police. Really unhelpful. Technology is awful. But actually, the real problem with thrillers, or the essential difference for me between thrillers and fantasy, is that with fantasy, you're trying to convince the reader that what's happening is real, and that the world is realistic, and that you can believe in it. So you're giving them as much information as you can in, lots of sneaky ways, like world building and dialogue and stuff, so that, they will believe in it. And you have to sort of do the same with the characters, so you get to know them really well. Whereas with a thriller, what you're doing most of the time is keeping information away from the reader. So it's kind of the opposite of what you do with fantasy books.
Did you find it a lot less? Because I've just dropped a thriller on my agent, and he's come back with it. I went, yeah, it's really good, but you've written about a third too much words.
Yeah, the first one was much too short. I think it was about 85,000 words, and it ended up being bulked out to just under 100,000. But there is that weird, because we're so used to writing books that are, 150,000 words long, or 200,000 words long, and to suddenly be like, oh, I only have to write 90,000 words. It's a bit of a gear change, but when it comes to editing, it's fantastic, because you're like, oh, I can edit this in a couple of weeks. It doesn't take my whole life to read it through.
Something you said there made me think. Do you think the difference between those is down to world building, though? Is that the difference between, because you don't, like you say, you don't actually, world building is not something you really have to do in a thriller, because it's set in the world that everybody knows, right? So you're cutting straight to the action. I always think that, especially with short stories, I always think fantasy and science fiction writers have a much harder time for it than a short horror fiction writer. Where most horror stories are set contemporary, happening in the real world. You can get straight to the good stuff, whereas you've got to use the same word count to create the entire world and tell everyone what's different, and then also tell a compelling narrative, right?
I wrote a short story for the Cursed anthology that came out earlier this year, and I decided to do a short fantasy story, and it is really hard because you only have 5,000-6,000 words, but you've still got to give a sense of an entire world without all the really handy, I don't know, like in the Winnowing Flame books, I would have a piece at the beginning of each chapter that was a journal entry that gives you a really fun and easy way to drop in some info, but you just don't have that with the short word count.
Do you think it's, for everybody, easier to write things people don't know? Because there's no sex scenes in any of my books, because everyone knows most people know what that's like. There's quite a few right-wing people, I don't think they know what it's like. But so I don't put sex scenes in this book, because then people might realise what a terrible hack I am, and I think that's not what it's like. But I just wonder, especially with like thrillers, like I write some other stuff in the real world, and you're always aware that actually when you're describing this thing, if you do a ridiculous description of it, everyone's just going to go, no, a car is not like a cheeseburger. You can't have
realism is a pain in the arse.
So a large chunk of the Doors of Eden is set real world modern day, and my God, that's a lot of work compared to just making up a world. The amount of research I've done, the streets I have literally walked so that I know what I'm talking about when I have my chase scene from King's Cross to Mount Pleasant or whatever the hell. I mean, and you kind of feel most people aren't going to care, but the people who do care will absolutely let you know when you get it wrong. So, it is. I mean, honestly, I so much prefer just the bits I'm making up. Even if it's science making up where I actually have to get the science right, having to get the actual real world geography right is a pain in the ass. It really is.
How did anyone write books before Google Maps?
Yeah, I was just thinking that, because my latest song for the end, I've got a car chase down the M1 from Milton Keynes to, it actually ends at, with the pursuing car crashing into the display window at Hamley. So it's a good long car chase. And I've still got the bookmarks for Google Maps. I've got like 3 or 4. I spent hours plotting the route and working out what had to happen where. So it can be a pain in the neck. Yeah,
you can get obsessional, can't you? Because I did it's set in Las Vegas, and I was looking for a particular thing in Las Vegas so I could have it mentioned in the story. And I spent a week looking for it before finally realizing actually nobody cares about me.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. 99% of the time, it's for a couple of lines that other people are just going to read and carry on and not care. But you wouldn't be a writer if you didn't care about those things.
Ruth is saying an interesting point about the information difference in fantasy and thrillers. Do you think science fiction, Adrian, needs more realism?
It depends where you are on the axis. There is an axis of realism in science fiction. So when I was doing Children of Time, that is, to my mind, hard science fiction. And especially as I was trying to sell a pretty weird setup with the whole giant evolved talking spiders business, I had to work really hard to make everything as plausible as possible, because I think the whole thing would have fallen over as soon as it sounded like I was just making it up with a magic wand. As you move more towards the space opera end of things, I think it matters less, and you can kind of hand wave the science, because that's not what people are there for. and it's not what the book is kind of reliant on. So there's quite a spectrum, but certainly if you're going at the sciencier end, then yeah, it's effectively you have to fit to the best models you can get hold of how the universe works. Or if you are, or it's twice as much work if you want to basically say, well, those models aren't applying in this book, and here's why. And then you have to work out a way of showing your readership that you've done all of that work without actually showing them all the work you've done, because that would be tedious.
Because I know in Children of Ruin, there are big sort of watery spaceships, and I know you did a lot of research on how that would work in space.
Yes,
that
I had a whole team of physicists.
Yeah. And I, as a reader, I'm just thinking, oh my god, octopuses.
I'm sure that makes you feel better. Those lots of research.
A lot of the time, what that research does give you is then it gives you other things you can spin off from that make you feel terribly clever, because you're doing a thing, and even if no one really picks up on it, you know you've done a terribly clever thing that is actually based on real science. And sometimes, I mean, with the when I was researching Children of Time, I ended up in the Natural History Museum entomology department talking about giant spiders, and someone just turned up from an expedition in the back of beyond somewhere, I can't even remember, and happened to mention a thing which solved the plot problem I was butting my head against at that very moment. So yeah, I mean, that research does tend to kind of come back and it's a bit like an NPC in a video game where you've done their subquest, and then later on in the game they turn up and give you a gift, and suddenly you can progress in the game.
Do you think part of research is confidence? Because I was talking with somebody emailed me to ask about writing. My first reaction is, why ask me? Because I just make stuff up. But I think part of making the sort of leap to doing it is being confident enough to say, right, this is what I'm going to do. And sometimes maybe, do you think research actually just gives you that grounding to say, right, this is the thing I'm going to do, and then you can actually ignore it? Jen, you were looking like, don't ask me that. You were doing the face of
Oh, great. Yeah, no, I mean, my fantasy books, I didn't do a huge amount of research because of making everything up, and I'm always quite happy to do that and let magic solve all my problems. But I really, really love reading historical fiction. It's probably the thing that I read most often now of any of the genres. But the idea of writing it is really terrifying because of the amount of research involved. So I guess there must be a level where you've done so much research that you can just say, right, I've achieved this higher plane of existence. I've attained my ultimate form. I'm now capable of writing about, the Tudors and stuff like that. But I don't know how much research you have to do before you feel that confident about it.
I would dearly have loved The Bone Ships to be a book about the Napoleonic Navy, but I read a lot of fiction about those types of ships, but I read an actual factual book about a ship of the line and just thought, no.
It's enough.
I mean, I think it's one of those. There is definitely a confident thing in that, but it's a bit like being fluent in a foreign language. I think you have to put a lot of work in before you get to the point where you are so conversant with a historical period or with a branch of physics that you can just play with it without a safety net. And although I do my best with the science, I don't think I've ever got to that stage with most aspects of it. I mean, I'm fairly good on kind of evolutionary paleontology and things like that, which is where a lot of the Doors of Eden comes from. But I think it's a lot like oh good lord, it's a lot like having a fantasy world that you really, really worked through. Because when I was writing, I could go back and write more stuff in the Shadows of the Apt world because I know that world back to front, because I used to basically run into the role-playing campaign. Wow. And so I'm just innately, insanely comfortable with every aspect of the world. And I could, if you dropped me in it, I'd be able to get by, weirdly enough. I know where everything is. I know how everything works. And and that does give you a weird kind of freedom. I think if you really research a period or a field of study, then you can get to that same kind of point where no matter what curves the writing process throws you, you're always going to be able to field them.
And it takes a lot of time as well, that sort of research, a lot of time and space, and the having the access to things to do it, which is another reason I think historical fiction is quite difficult.
I've only ever done one actual historical. It was a novella for a Dracula anthology from Rebellion. It turned out pretty well, but I was aware by the end of it that I had done far more research to make that novella work than the actual kind of scale of the project really warranted. Because you kind of feel you don't want to kind of take half measures on it. So I was doing things like, well, I need to look up who the primate of Poland is in this particular year, and that kind of.
Yeah,
I used to write a lot of historical scripts for museums and stuff, so I have enough of a grounding in history to be angry when a book gets it wrong, but not enough to actually write one and be confident that I would get it right. I'm just going to go back to the comments. Katie has said that I need to stop saying things in other places and just write in leads. Thank you, Katie.
Can I just pick up on that, Katie? It speaks to what you were all just talking about. There's a reason that I've written 2 of a projected 3 novella trilogy set in Milton Keynes, because I live in Milton Keynes. I know the town, and it really does help. As you say, it's that short circuit. I've lived here for 20 years now. I'm very comfortable talking about this place. I know it very well, and I happen to think there are certain advantages to it as a literary place, because it's close enough to London, but it's far enough away from London, and the layout of the city is somewhat unusual. There's a lot of nice things about it that make it work for the kind of fiction I'm writing here. It's not, it's not pure laziness that I chose Milton Keynes, but it is partly laziness because I know the environment, and it just saves so much time if you know the environment.
I have tried to write books in London, set in London twice, and both times they just sort of stopped about 60,000 words in. But I still ideally want to write one, because obviously I love London. But part of the problem is that every bugger's written a novel in London, especially genre books as well. There's a lot of fantastical London books. So there's the issue of, am I writing anything new, really? Does anyone need my version of fantasy London?
I have written a thing set that is coming out.
Yes, is the answer.
I can't talk about it, but I have written a thing set in Leeds that is happening. But I chose to make up large parts of it to give me the freedom to do what I wanted to do. So I've ruined Leeds for actually using in any recognisable form, which I thought was quite clever of me.
I think if Leeds Tourist Board had any sense, they would be paying me not to write things set in Leeds.
Well, that's a good point. I've ended the world twice in Milton Keynes already, and I'm going to do it again. So I don't know how popular I'm going to be with the locals when they say I've blown up another estate.
Did Charlie Stross destroy Leeds, or is that my imagination?
I think he's destroyed a friend.
Ruth again has said that she read Other Minds before she read Children of Ruin, and it was super interesting.
Yes, which I have RJ to thank for putting me onto Other Minds, and it was absolutely invaluable. I mean, that was basically my scientific research on octopus cognition, and yes, it fed. I acknowledge it in the book, and it fed fairly solidly into the way that book worked, and pretty much is the reason why that book works, to be honest.
It's a superb book. It has the metaphor about it says an octopus is like its brain. Our brain is like the conductor of an orchestra, in which case it tells the musicians what to do, and an octopus's brain is like the conductor of a free jazz ensemble, in which it says what it wants and hopes its body will sort it out, which is my favorite thing in the book. I'm just looking. Oh, we've got a message in the private chat just to tell us we're all doing great. So team.
Nice. Yay.
Were we supposed to get onto the whole end of the world thing before the actual end of the podcast?
Yeah. How do you feel about the end of the world?
I'm anti, generally.
Yeah. I'm down.
Yeah, not a fan.
Yeah.
I will say I've just finished reading a book called It's the End of the World, but What Are We Really Afraid Of by Adam Roberts, which is a phenomenal sort of dissection of how we fictionalize the end of the world and the thought process behind that and the themes that turn up And the fact that almost every single apocalyptic scenario, up to and including the revelations of John of Patmos, are not about the end of the world. They are about the end of the world, except that people survive it, and here is the next thing. I mean, even Ragnarok, the old Norse myth cycle, people survive it, and there is another world. And that's the fascinating thing, that the one thing we can't actually imagine is genuinely the end of the world.
It's actually my big beef with apocalypse fiction. Yeah, I feel that. I mean, it's one of the, funny enough, one of the things I was trying to do with The Finite, which is the first of my novellas that destroys Milton Keynes, was about trying to reckon with exactly that. I wanted to write an apocalypse story as opposed to post-apocalypse. I wanted to show the end. I wanted to show people living through what they knew were going to be the last few weeks of their lives. And the end. I mean, it's a bit of a cheat. It's not really the end of the world, but it's the end of their world, certainly. And I mean, having written that, I understand why people don't very often, because it wasn't a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, it's a short story. It's a thing you can do quite well in short stories. But then again, in short stories, you know, you're not going back. You've got 10 pages. You set up your thing. It's going to be the end, and then that's fine. And it's not. But yeah, I mean, if you slog through an entire book, and yet, oh right, that's what happened to them. Then that can be a bit.
One of the books that I think the only book I've read where it really sort of does the end of the world was I think it's called Evolution by Stephen Baxter, where you don't really stick with any particular characters. You're just sort of skipping forward through time and see what happens essentially. And then like the last chapter is essentially Earth is a ball of red horror, and there are some little monkeys running around that are us, and we are just tiny primate things. And that was kind of it was one of the only times I've read a book and gone, oh wow, that really could, that would be it, that could be.
Well, I mean, what Roberts brings up in his book is one of the few well-known examples in the sci-fi canon is the time machine. I mean, everyone remembers the Morlocks and the Eloi and so forth. Of course, it does go right up till the end when the Earth is, just this mostly dead sea and mostly dead land, and there are certainly no people, and really does take us to a point where everything is used up and everything is gone.
Neil Gaiman did it in the Books of Magic, Volume 1, where the magician takes the kid. I can't remember the kid's name. It's not Harry, is it? But he looks a lot like him. Takes him right to the very. And I remember, I always remember the image of like the deliberately slightly abstract shape of the kind of green stick figures saying, "Is it true that in the past there used to be 14 spiders in a single day to eat? Is that really true?" And I've never forgotten that. A wonderful image of like, the very end of the world. Yeah.
I'm just going to skip to the comments because there's one particular for Adrian here. It says, Adrian, any possibility of you going back to a sci-fi weekend in future? And if so, can you bring Kit, Jen, and RJ with you? Please, it makes us sound like pets.
Really unruly cats.
Yeah.
Some of those requests are kind of beyond my power. I would love to go to another sci-fi weekend when. I mean, you know what? I would love to go to absolutely any bloody damn thing.
Go to a convention again.
I mean, obviously the convention season has been DOA this year, and for however much of next year, I'm not sure. But my God, I'm looking forward to actually being able to go to a thing.
Oh my God,
yeah. Lovely. Everyone talks about writers being introverts, which I don't necessarily believe, but nearly every writer I know is going, please let me just meet people at a convention. It's what I want.
I just really miss being in a crowded bar having a shouted conversation about Farscape or something,
That's the thing. I think, go on.
Half conversations with people that you suddenly get dragged away to somebody else.
Yeah.
Then you sort of circle back and carry that one on, which I love.
And then you got to go to a panel, and then you got to go to a reading, and then you've got to have several more pints, and then you've got to go to another reading, and it all goes wrong.
Yeah. I think it's talking to other writers, though. That's the thing for me, because I don't have other writers in my day-to-day life. I just don't.
No.
We are, forgive me for saying so, a strange bunch. And it's being with people who understand this bizarre compulsion that we have to do what we do. And it's just nice to be amongst that's what I miss. I just miss being amongst the tribe, being amongst the people who are like fellow kind of inmates, I guess.
I'd never been around other writers until my first book sold. And it did kind of feel like coming home. It was really weird. So these people actually know what I'm talking about.
It's a second family, I think.
Yeah, we're down to the last 6 minutes. So I'm just going to do something we always do, which is the Writeopolis playlist. Is Kit going to be surprised this time? Because usually he is shocked by this thing that we do every single time. Yes.
True.
Jen, is there a song you would particularly like us to put on the Writeopolis playlist for you that you like?
For me, any song.
Yeah,
Yes.
any song you particularly like from anyone.
Literally any song.
Oh no, this is exactly the sort of decision I'm terrible at. Like the choice of all songs.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What about
Okay,
one you absolutely hate?
Oh God, I will go with an Eels song because they're everyone's second favourite band, I believe. And I will go with I Like Birds.
I like it. I think that might be the second time we've had the Eels.
See, everybody likes the Eels.
Or maybe.
Oh, the eel. I thought you said the eel.
Yeah.
So Fiddle's comment there is exactly right. There's complete blank, no idea, cannot think of any songs face.
I do like Fiddle's comment about why Adrian was chosen to have us as his pets, which is I think because usually the boss is wearing a big hat. So as Adrian's the only one without a hat at the moment, we just elected him as the leader.
Do we need now a picture of me in the kind of the Chris Pratt pose with you three as the Velociraptors then?
That's perfect. That is perfect.
Adrian, what about you for the Writeopolis playlist?
God, you know, it's a weird thing. During lockdown, I've discovered kind of popular music again, which I kind of
80s metal. I was told you're a big fan of.
not really. I've discovered things like bands like the Gorillaz and so forth, who've been about for a long time and are still going, but I never really encountered them, and now I'm absolutely all over them. But
Only 20 years too late, Adrian.
yeah, I know. Well, it's the thing, but you know what? It's this, yeah. But the honestly, there's a whole track list of songs from a French artist called Woodkid, which were the writing playlist to my the space opera series I'm working on at the moment.
Can you name one particular track?
Yeah,
Okay.
Conquest of Spaces.
Conquest of
Spaces.
Spaces. That's very fitting. Kate, do you want a second more to think about it, or should I go to mine?
No, that one. I'll go classics. I had a long car journey with my daughter going up and back to see my mum over half term, which I'm really glad I did because we're probably not going to get to do that again for a while now. So that was good. And I set up a playlist and we were talking and chatting, and then this song came on and we both just shut up and listened to it. And it's Little Wing by Jimi Hendrix, which, you know, might be the greatest song ever written. I don't know. It's certainly got to be anyone's top 10 if you're serious. And it was a kind of magic moment where we just stopped mid-conversation and just listened to this impossibly perfectly beautiful 2.5 minutes.
So you say that, but I'm going to choose the actual greatest rock song that has ever been written by human beings on this planet, which is Don't Do That Face, Kit. Even if this wasn't on video, I'd know he was doing that face.
Yeah, you can hear it, can't you? You sense doubt, don't you?
Yeah. Which is Prime Mover by Zodiac Mind Warp and the Love Reaction, which is... It's going on. Okay. We've got 2 minutes left, and we've promised to keep it to an hour. So if Adrian and Jen, you have anything or anyone you want to say anything to, the floor is yours.
Oh no.
No.
Kit is upside down.
Yeah, okay. I would like to say, as things get tight, please do support independent local bookshops as much as you can, and please do look out for perhaps new writers who've got books coming out and who maybe don't have the big publicity boost behind them, and support them if you can, if you're able to.
I was supposed to go back to work in my bookshop on Thursday. That was my first day back, because obviously we've been isolating, quite strictly because we were in the vulnerable group, etc. So I was finally going to go back to work on Thursday, and now we're not. So if you're in Southeast London, do give Herne Hill Books or Clapham Books a ring, because they are the most brilliant people in the world. They've genuinely been so supportive of us as we've had like the shittest year imaginable. And they've done nothing but look after us. So if you feel like buying a book and you're in Southeast London, give them a ring. That's Clapham Books or Hernhill Books. They're both awesome.
That's brilliant sentiment. And I have no idea what's going on with Kid.
I think they're showing us his rabbits.
Oh, there are rabbits now.
Oh, rabbit cam.
I assume.
What are the rabbits called? What are their names?
So the rabbits are called Ginger and Ninja.
Is one of them named after Ginger Wildheart? Or just...
Potentially. Let's go with that, shall we?
Ginger and Ninja, was that?
Ginger and Ninja.
Ninja was the one you
The
did.
festival was saying that Kit's regenerated into rabbits. There's a lot of bunny excitement.
Well, it's the Watership Down references. I felt I had to get it in now. Bunny cam, yeah.
Bunny cam.
And that has brought us up to our hour, and you've been fantastic, Adrian and Jenn, and it has been lovely. Yeah. Do you want to just quickly remind people about your latest books?
Yes.
Kate as well? Yeah.
Oh. Yeah, I mean, my latest book is The Poison Song. It's the third book in the William Frame trilogy, so that's still available in bookshops. And my next book is out in June next year. So, so pre-order it. It's called Dog Rose Dirt in the UK.
That's such a good title as well. Mine is out on the 26th of November, so go and order it from Jenn's bookshop.
Yes, please.
Yes, do that.
Yeah.
I'll draw in them or something, you know.
I'll send the bookshop book plates as well. You've all been lovely. I don't know now quite how it ends. I know.
How do we end it? Do they cut us off?
Oh, there he is.
I want to say
we
thank
can
you.
just give you a massive round of applause for helping us.
Yes, absolutely.
Oh, thank you all for your
Ross,
time.
look busy.
It's been really entertaining. It's been like being on the best. It's like the best work Zoom chat possible. Tomorrow's going to pale into comparison. So thank you all so much for your time. It was great, and I can see in the chat people are finding the best emojis for the circumstances. I
didn't know there's a bunny emoji.
No, there we go. There we go. I did think ending it on looking like Kit had regenerated into bunnies would have been the perfect kind of cut-off point. Like the feed went. But never mind.
Let's just pretend
I just want to say. So I just want to say thank you very much, all of you. If you're up in Yorkshire, our local bookshop, who are based in Holmfirth, which is last of the summer wine territory, I've also been a massive supporter of our festival, and would love to hear from people if you're up this way as well, because they're going to be open, I think, for a few more days until they have to close, but they do the postal orders and stuff as well. So just for me to say thank you so much, everybody, and I'll let you go off into the night, or maybe we'll now have a tense conversation about whether this stays up for posterity or if you want it taken down so nobody gets to see it afterwards. But we'll do that off broadcast. So I think it's time for the awkward wave.
All right,
Bye.
That's traditional awkward wave.
Bye.